Muted.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you again for joining us. It looks like we have a pretty good group here today. My name is Jeff Panting. I'm the Partner Marketing Manager here at Boostability. And really, I'm just here today to introduce our presenter, Kaz Bevan. She's the Director of Marketing here at Boostability. She's had that role for about the last 5 years. Before that, she's been involved in influencer marketing with some pretty big companies like Sony Music, Speed TV. And she's been involved in influencer marketing before that was even a term. So she has some really great information to share. In the time that she's been with Boostability, she's managed to grow our own organic following on social media from almost nothing to over 100,000 followers completely organically without any paid follower campaigns. So she has some great information to help out your influencer marketing campaigns. So with that, I will turn the time over to Kaz. One quick note, if you do have questions during the presentation, please just chat those to us. We'll address those at the end. And when the presentation is all finished, we will share the slides as well as a recording. So if you want to review any information, we'll have that for you, and we'll be able to share it with those who could not attend. So with that, I'll pass it over to Kaz.
Hi, thank you, Jeff. It's good to be doing this. It's been a couple of years since I've done a Boostability webinar, so it's good to be back. Hopefully I still have what it takes to get this information for you guys. So like Jeff said, I've actually worked as an influencer in the past before it was even a term. And so it's really been interesting to see how things have gone from, but just over the years, but just how the influencing has changed with different social media platforms. So we're going to get into that a little bit here. But since Boostability is primarily an SEO services company, we're really going to talk a lot about how you can amplify influencer marketing by doing SEO. Because if you don't have your search down right, then your influencer marketing is going to fall flat, and that's going to cost a lot of money that no one wants to spend. So we're going to discuss that. Today, influencer marketing is a growing tool for any size business. However, it is being underutilized and not used correctly. In this session, you'll learn how to use powerful digital marketing tools like SEO and social media to help you take your influencer marketing campaigns to the next level. Do you have anybody that currently uses influencer marketing or influencer agencies? You can go ahead and just raise your hand or drop something in chat. As we go through this webinar, these are the objectives that we have. We're going to go over the best social media channels for influencer marketing, how to amplify that with search optimization, and how to enhance your influencer marketing. So enhance your sites as well as enhance your influencer marketing campaigns. So other people's sites that are working for you, making sure that they have what it takes to amplify your business organically. And then just going over some SEO best practices in utilizing influencer and SEO together. So if you're completely new to what social media influencers are, a social media influencer is a user on social media who has established credibility in a special industry. So they're very, very niche markets. I'm sure over the years, someone, whether it's you or someone else in your family, has watched an unboxing video on YouTube, has read a top 10 best places to road trip blog post, or has seen somebody at a basketball game posting, you know, that they love the game, they love the food there just from their Instagram account, right? Some of it seems personal and natural. Some of it is obviously marketing, and the best social influencers are the ones that make it look as natural as following your best friend, but they're actually doing something specific for a brand. So these influencers have access to a large audience and can persuade others by virtue of their authenticity and reach. So it's all about who they naturally are. being compelled to follow that person because you feel like you know that person. They fit into your follower feed because they seem like one of your friends or family, because you want to be them, you want to be like them, you want to eat what they're talking about, you want to wear what they're wearing. So influencer marketing is kind of stealthy for some people and obvious to others. It kind of depends on the campaign, and we'll go over some of those best practices and what they should look like. Also, a social media influencer, there's micro influencers, and then there's Kardashians, right? So it's everywhere in between. Your micro influencers can have just a few hundred followers or just 1,000 followers, as long as they're really speaking to that niche market. What's most important is the engagements that they're receiving on those posts. So don't feel like you have to get started really big with somebody that has 6-figure followers. You can actually get a lot more exposure to your brand if you do, a half a dozen micro influencers that actually have that personal engagement with people rather than one big, huge follower campaign. And we'll get into that a little bit as well. So what it means to use a social media influencer. Using social media influencers in your marketing is the practice of building relationships with the people who can build relationships for you. Whether an influencer's audience is small or large, an influencer can reach consumers via their blogs and social networks that your brand may not be able to. So a lot of people talk about how you find social media influencers, how you find the right ones. And we'll include in the recording of this webinar, we make a big recording page with answers to all of your questions. We'll also include some how-to articles on how to find an agency and how to determine the best influencer, as well as how to measure the ROI of influencer campaigns. Those are all really big questions that could be webinars in and of themselves, but the easy answer for now is just Google influencer marketing agencies, and that's the best way to start. You can look into different agencies that offer different ways of searching for an influencer that is particular to your brand or business. So why are social media influencers important to marketing sustainability? In other words, why is this a thing? Like, is this just a buzzword? Is this just something that's the here and now? The truth is that influencer marketing has been around as long as we have. When you think about it, it's the same as referral word of mouth marketing that we encourage others to do for us. It's also similar to just watching Jimmy Fallon at night and having that subliminal marketing when you're watching him and he makes a joke about Arby's or something like that. And it seems really natural, but you know quite well that he got paid a lot to mention Target. For example, he did that recently for his birthday. He said he does all his birthday shopping at Target. That one was a little blatant. Like, do we really believe that? But it still works. And so all of these are elements of influencer marketing, and influencer marketing is the current buzzword around it. So they're important to marketing sustainability simply because today's teens are tomorrow's consumers. So even if you're a B2B business that's working with people that own companies, they're large partners, things like that, the truth is that they're going to hand that company off to their son any day now. And the people that they're selling to and the people that are noticing them today are much, much younger. And that generation is rising really quickly. So today, that Gen Z generation is using Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter and replacing Facebook as the most widely used social account for USA teens. The future of social media is dark. And by that, we mean dark social. We'll also include some materials in the Q&A about our dark social articles that we have written. So dark social is another buzzword these days, and what it means simply is that there are social media accounts out there that don't, for privacy reasons and simply because that's the way of the future, because people are more concerned about privacy, not just from their moms on social media, but from the world in general. These dark social networks are social networks where cookies can't follow you around. So we can't go around and track what somebody is doing on Snapchat when only people they choose to follow can see them. Similarly, there's things like WhatsApp chats or Discord is a new, very popular platform for Gen Z. These are all things that have the potential to be tracked, just like back in the day, Facebook didn't have any analytics for tracking either. They have potential, but then there, again, is the trend that people are more and more concerned about their privacy, and therefore these different platforms are doing more to keep their platforms private and being less about, or at least trying to seem like they're less about advertising to retain these younger generations. So as of today, you might be able to guess that this is the case, but it also might surprise you. The best social media channels for the future, based on Gen Z use, and the best social media channels for influencer marketing are first and foremost Instagram, and then Snapchat. YouTube still remains up there thanks to their unboxing videos and makeup tutorials, which do fall under the influencer marketing campaigns. They are still very high up there. And then personal blog posts. If you've ever followed somebody's personal recipe site, for example, that is someone that is an influencer in today's industry. So they make all of their money off of just being who they are, you know, being the next Julia Childs on their personal blog. So those are the places that you'll want to look for that reach, and the reason, again, that you want to look for that influencer reach is just because the younger generations are seeing right through brands, and they're consuming things very, very differently from today's consumers. They're looking at things and they want more personalization. They want things here and they want things now, but they want things to be natural and personal, and they want to treat a brand like a friend. And therefore, anything that we do that is too blatant for a brand, which is basically, for example, Facebook marketing is very link-based. It's share this link, share this blog post, share this landing page. That's something that the newer generation wants nothing to do with. And so we're having to think of how to market in whole different ways that brings them to us, rather than us constantly asking them to be our friends, to follow our site, to visit this. So that's what influencer marketing focuses on. And here's some stats about growth with Gen Z. I find it really interesting. I'm quite a numbers person. I love that Twitter has surpassed Facebook right there earlier this year. I think in my own personal use, that's been very, very obvious, even in my trend in using Facebook versus Twitter. I personally use Twitter a whole lot more. Then we have Instagram that is on the rise with Gen Z usage, and Snapchat that of course is way up there. But interesting is that this is from earlier in 2018, and we actually have done a lot of research for a blog post we did recently where we went and interviewed Gen Z and millennials to ask them for personal quotes about their use. And one of my favorites was a kid said to me, "Facebook is loud. Why would I use Facebook? It's just loud." And another girl said to me, "The only reason I got on Facebook is because all my grandparents are on there, and I went to Europe and I wanted to share photos with them." So she really just, only reason she started Facebook was for a 6-week trip so her grandparents could see stuff. Like, I don't know about you, but that makes me feel kind of bad about myself. Like, I didn't think I was that old. So, but what I found interesting in talking to them is that they actually are leaning more and more towards Instagram. They say that they like to be able to share their life in photos, and they said that they primarily follow brands on Instagram. So I asked, okay, then how and why do you use Snapchat? And they said that Snapchat they use basically as a chat platform only. So people, especially younger generations, aren't necessarily getting on Snapchat to follow Target or Coca-Cola. Like, that's not the point of Snapchat. They get on Snapchat so that they can send a quick video to their friends that says, "I'll see you in 5 minutes, I'm on my way." So that seems to be the way that Snapchat is being consumed these days by the younger generation, and they are saying that they go to Instagram actually for that brand, that influence and then to share their lives in a more public, visual way. That being said, an interesting stat that I found is that 85% of all Instagram users purposely follow a brand or brand influencer on Instagram that they think is a favorite. So, being a fan of Instagram now, you can see their projected growth and where they are today. They have pretty much more active users than any platform that businesses are used to using. So this doesn't mean that you should stop using Facebook. It doesn't mean that you should stop using other platforms or reduce using Twitter. Essentially, it just means that we're preparing ourselves very rapidly for the future of social media. And in the meantime, we still have to serve the audience of where other businesses are. You know, there's simple reasons to be on Facebook alone. It's just for a Facebook local page and address. It's still the third largest search engine on the internet today, and not just used as a social media platform. So it's very difficult for small businesses to spread their budgets thin when there are these bridges in platforms happening, and it seems to be kind of like a rubber band pulling. But I would just encourage you to do everything you can to create natural Instagram posts, and if you have the budget, to work with micro influencers around specific campaigns. But if you yourself as a brand don't have an active Instagram account, you're going to want to do that and establish that before you start using Instagram users, because what's going to happen is that when your Instagram influencer campaign does a great job, there's two routes that people take. Either they're immediately going to go to the search function in Instagram and try to find you if your brand name is obvious to them. So if you're doing a very natural post in which boostability is displayed on a coffee cup in the background type of thing, and someone picks up on that, then they'll go straight to Instagram search and search for boostability and see what are they posting. So you really want to match your influencers in that way. If you don't have a very obvious campaign and you're really just trying to do a feel-good campaign that discusses, for example, boostability would do something about marketing. We have some great ideas for some marketing content that we're going to start putting out across influencers and Instagram and whatnot, and it just sparks interest, but they don't necessarily know that interest is in boostability. That means they go to Google instead of Instagram, and then they type in a search term. And that's where we're going to get into how SEO amplifies your influencer marketing. First and foremost, you want your social media profiles to be optimized and active, just like we were just talking about. Optimizing your social media profile means that all of your information is filled out on your profile and current. The thing that hurts small businesses the most is when they start a Facebook page because they're told, hey, I need a Facebook page, and then they never ever fill out their About Us section or their company overview section or add a particular branded photo to that section. So if you have the same photo in your icon, in your header, and in your About Us section, that's also a problem. You want to brand those all separately. So you want your page to look congruent but separate. You want to look like you spent time on it, because that really captures people and leads people's eyes to the About Us section, the company overview section, even if you believe no one ever looks at it because you yourself don't look at it. It's how the search function of Facebook works. So you want to make sure that you have all of that content there, because that's how all of their algorithms go together. So when people are trying to find you or find businesses like you, that's how they find your page. So you do that for Facebook, you do that for Twitter, you do that for Instagram. They all have different ways of adding bios and adding company information. It's a best practice to have your name and address for all of those be the same if possible, which is why I always recommend to people, even if you're not using it yet, register all of your social media accounts at the same time. So that's a best practice as well, but you definitely want to optimize those social media accounts for search. You want to use your brand name, you want to quickly explain what you do, and you want to drop your most important keywords in that explanation. And again, be active. Make sure your accounts are active. You can't run an influencer campaign with someone that is active in hopes of making your account active. It doesn't work that way. I like to say that engagement is what engagement does. So you have to be what you want people to see. And when you're creating an influencer campaign, if it's a video, you want to use vocal cues. If it's a photo, you definitely want subliminal markers that will lead somebody to your business. So essentially, I'm sure if you've seen some Instagram photos with influencers, for example, fashion is a very big industry in influencer marketing. Clearly you don't know just from looking at the person whether she is wearing a shirt from Walmart or a shirt from Mark by Marc Jacobs. You can't tell the difference necessarily unless you're a fashionista yourself. So in order to understand those things, you have to read the message that they put, the hashtags that they're using, but it's not always that straightforward. Sometimes it's not about the shirt, sometimes it's about her earrings, or sometimes it's about her bag. So people, you really need to capture them with a very good photo, a very natural photo that doesn't have your logos all over it. It isn't very blatant. It doesn't look like you're trying to push your brand. And then a captured photo will lead them into the caption with more information. And more information, you can have hashtags for tracking it. You can have your brand mentioned in that information. But you never want to come across with a call to action. This is the opposite of call to action marketing. In the sense, it's demand generation instead of lead generation. You're asking for people who are truly interested to come to you. So then you also want your website to be ready with specific web pages and blog posts that target search results. So if you do a lot of work to create just this one image or a series of images, you can think, what are people going to ask when they see this image? What are they going to ask themselves? So that translates to what would they ask Google? And then is that question and that answer on your website? So that is a bit about how influencer marketing amplifies your SEO. We're going to go through some examples right now. So this is an example of somebody that used to work at Google, and she quit Google to become an influencer. And this is just her Instagram account. She also runs a blog. Her blog is primarily where she does the actual influence. So she gets into the details of the brand, how much it costs, why she wears it, what she loved about it, things like that. But she uses really fantastic photography and travel in order to capture people into her story. But what I love most about what she does in particular is that she personalizes it. So if somebody asks her to please display this outfit, show this bag, or maybe talk about my restaurant or somewhere you travel to, she personalizes it. She doesn't just post a picture of it and then blatantly say in the comments that this is great, you should do it. She actually tells a story about how she met the woman that asked her to please visit her hotel and how beautiful the hotel is. She gets into just a story that's very captivating, and it is way better at selling than just saying, I stayed in a beautiful hotel, check it out. So you really want somebody that's going to be a storyteller. But one of the points that I wanted to make out here is that she, at this point, had 127,000 followers, but you can kind of lightly see there that she only had 74 comments and about 2,000 likes on a post. And that's actually pretty good, but you want to make sure that regardless of the amount of followers, that they're getting that activity, because it is more about who's paying attention than who follows people. You don't want to just have people whirling past a post and not paying attention. So if somebody's trying to get you to agree to use them as an influencer, you almost can ignore the followers. It's more about how engaging they are and if they're engaging with your demographic. So here's an example of a very big influencer in the marketing industry talking about a book that he wrote. So you can see that he has hundreds of thousands of followers, and he uses Twitter primarily as his voice box. So it doesn't always have to be about Instagram. Twitter is really, really great when it comes to a demographic niche of marketing, journalism, or writing of any kind. So if you're an author, if you have a book, if you're a marketer, if you're a speaker, it's really a great platform for those interactive conversations. So that's someplace that you should definitely look if that's what you do. And then, of course, food is always one that we pay attention to as an influencer platform. These are ones that have been around in a very obvious way in a long time, but it's something that we can learn from as marketers and B2B influencer campaigns. So you don't have to be in fashion and food in order to have influencer. You can do it with any type of brand. We're actually working on one now for construction management. So it can happen. You can find that creativity regardless of what kind of business you have. But you can see that she has almost the same amount of engagements on a post with 30,000, almost 40,000 less followers. So you want to really compare that ratio when you're looking for the optimal person to use for your own campaign. And then we're to micro influencers. One of my favorite friends of mine is actually a Disney influencer. 100% of her life is spent just eating Disney food and buying Disney gear and riding roller coasters. So how good is that? That's all she does. And you can see she only has 5,000 followers. What she does is primarily writes for other publications like Travel and Leisure and things like that. But she started developing her own personal brand so that she can be an influencer through her accounts in addition to being a guest writer. So at first she was really identifying as a writer, but now she's just identifying as the world's greatest Disney pro. She's been to every Disney park throughout the entire world. And what I've learned from her is that there's hundreds of Disney influencers that have these small follower accounts. I mean, anywhere from just a few hundred accounts to have another friend that's a Disney influencer who only has 300 followers. So there's large companies like Disney that really are utilizing this way of just naturally speaking to people and getting people excited through people's visual storytelling. So here's an example we were kind of going over earlier of thinking of the questions that your photo or video will cause people to ask. So when you're creating the concept for what your photo is going to be, you want to have these questions in mind, and then you want to optimize your website to be able to answer these questions. So if we had an influencer campaign for boostability, we would focus on the keyword of marketing with boostability. So we would want to, because marketing in particular is such a strong and competitive word on the internet, we would probably have our logo not blatantly in the photo, but somewhere, like I said before, like on a coffee cup on a desk in the background, so that somebody could come and say, okay, I watched this brief video on Instagram about marketing, and this person had a boostability cup on their desk. What is that about? So we would really gear them towards this keyword, and then what we would do is we would make sure that our web pages, our key pages, would answer that question, and then we would also have a series of blog posts that answer that question. So that means putting those keywords into the title of the post and then doing really relevant content to that post and making sure that they're recent and live and have some traction and are searchable at the same time that you're releasing your campaign. Otherwise, you release an influencer campaign and they try to find you and they can't, and then you're just promoting someone else's brand, and nobody wants to do that. So marketing with boostability, we have great results for that. It immediately shows that we're an award-winning SEO company, which goes hand in hand with the blog post series that we have that explains what awards we win each month, and then it explains who we are, and then it goes straight into our #1 landing page of online marketing services. So this would be ideal for us, and you want to figure out what that is for you and make sure that you have the content on your site that's ranking the pages that you would want be a result of your influencer campaigns. And if that's something you need help with, that's what Boostability does. So social media and SEO best practices. We've kind of briefly gone over this before, but we're going to just recap them here. Above all else, you want it to be authentic. You want it to not be a call to action. You want it to not be blatant marketing, and you want to really focus on that storyteller aspect. You want it to have natural visual cues. You want it to be well done. You want it to be pretty. You want it to be in brand, but not obviously, again, not so much over branding that it looks like a call to action for your business. You don't want to have, a wrecking ball with your business name go through the middle of your video, although that would be great. Maybe you should try. But you don't want it to be that blatant, because people are really turning away from being asked to do something. They want to do what they want to do. They don't want you to ask them to come fill out a form or ask them to check out their business. So a great way of optimizing results and really finding that ROI for it is to use unique hashtags. Make sure that you research the hashtag ahead of time and make sure that it is something that is truly unique to you and your business and not something that's widely being used. And that way, when your influencer includes those hashtags in their video or photo, you can search those hashtags with your social media listing tools to see how many people start utilizing it, clicking on it, the impressions on it, and things like that. That's a good way of seeing immediate engagement rather than waiting for that bottom line result to see how well a campaign did. Another thing that I say is to be a follower. It's kind of like engagement is what engagement does. If you want to do really well with influencer marketing, then you should follow a lot of influencer marketing people, and you should see what they're doing. You should see what they're doing well. And then be immersive. And what I mean by immersive is envision that circle of how it all is going to work together, how your influencer campaign is going to drive traffic to your social media, what you want people to see on your social media, which is going to drive traffic to your website, what you expect them to see on your website. And it just goes in one big circle. If you are trying to get leads from it, trying to get newsletter contacts, then what are you going to send them? What is that next step going to be? What is the full cycle? So that's what we have today. We'll go over any questions that you guys have, and if we don't get to your question, we will answer all questions that you guys have on the Q&A webinar recording page, which again, we will send to everybody. So you should see that in the next couple of days.
All right, we do have a couple of questions to get to. How do you find influencers for your specific niche?
Great question. So we'll include some of those how-to steps in the Q&A, but the broad answer is that when you search for an influence marketing agency, those agencies actually have them, a good agency at least, will have them sorted out for you by keyword, brand, or category. So you can go in and you can choose a category such as, I have a law office. Let's see what we can come up with law office. And if you can't find yourself in a category that makes sense, you can actually type in keywords and search for these people and their expertise and their niche based on what these influencer agencies have sorted people as.
Another question, do you service LinkedIn marketing campaigns? Does influencer marketing work the same for B2B scenarios? Yes,
it's not something that's widely known or used, and that's the greatness of it. Instead, if you go and you do something really well, you're going to have a lot of traction in a less used space like LinkedIn. So I have two friends that I would consider LinkedIn influencers. One of them, of course, actually happens to be the director of content for LinkedIn. So it's his job to make it look great, right? But he does a really great job of bringing his life into his business and making you want to follow him and love LinkedIn because you love him. His name is Jason Miller. If you want to look him up, he's published a couple of books and he does a lot of speaking engagements. But he previously worked at Sony Music Entertainment with me. So as an influencer, everything that he does on the internet, from LinkedIn to Instagram, it's all focused on actually his hobby, which is rock and roll photography. So everything that he does, even if it's a LinkedIn event, is all about, photos of Motley Crue that he's taken over the years and these crazy things. And it's really a lot of fun. Another person that I love is Chad Lakin, Lakin. I've worked with him a lot when I lived in Sydney, Australia, but we're both back in the States. He's currently in San Diego. He runs a video company here in the United States. And so he does a lot of influencer campaigns for other businesses that he works with, partners that he works with, but also for his own company. So he is just straight LinkedIn video, which you don't see a lot on LinkedIn, and that's what's so relieving about it. But my recommendation with LinkedIn in doing that, I think absolutely do that. I think absolutely treat it like any other network, but you want to complement it with your other B2B social media accounts as well. So if you do a campaign on LinkedIn, I would also recommend reaching some of your demographic elsewhere, like on your Facebook page. So Facebook still has that strong B2B element where maybe people aren't interacting as much anymore or logging in as much anymore. And we've seen a lot of stats with that with Facebook in the news recently, but you still want to be consumable in any place that people go. And I recommend making them different, not posting the same exact campaign. It's going to be difficult to find an actual agency right now that offers LinkedIn influence marketing, but it's something that you can very easily do yourself. So I would say to find somebody that you know personally, or even create your own personal brand and start that yourself. And if you do use an agency, reach out to them and ask somebody that's very popular on Twitter, for example, if they would do something that you can share or they can share to LinkedIn on your behalf and do that test. You can really kind of get them to do what you need them to do. What's hard about LinkedIn is it's not as measurable, because you can't measure your personal accounts in the same way that you can measure on other accounts. So you get a lot of statistics for a company profile on LinkedIn, but you don't want to work with a company profile necessarily. You want to work with an individual. So being able to track that engagement and have those numbers, I think that's primarily why agencies aren't going to list a lot of LinkedIn influencers, because they can't prove a lot of that. But again, if you know somebody that's really influential in the business personally, that's a great place to start. I think you should absolutely try that campaign.
Yeah, I think we have time for one more quick question. What if my audience and customers are older than millennials or Gen Z? Does the influencer marketing strategy change?
I think so. I like to tell people to think about your own social media experience. So think about the people that you know personally that are the same age as your demographic. And for example, my dad is certainly an older demographic, but he's incredibly active on social media, and he wows me. Like, I think he is more into influencer marketing than I am, but because he's the older generation, he doesn't necessarily know what to call it, or that that's what it is. So it's not that he's not receiving it. It's not that he doesn't know about it. It's that he's enjoying himself so much online that he doesn't even care. And so that's something that an older generation absolutely is still influenced by online influencers. He owns an electronic vehicle, and he has met so many people online through forums and YouTube videos. I think every single day I get a text message about somebody that he is now talking to online because of a YouTube video or some forum that he has gone to. So it does absolutely work. You just have to put yourself in the mindset of that older generation, and you have to realize, okay, they're not necessarily going to be the Instagrammer or the tweeter. So you want to really speak to written blogs. You want to speak to YouTube, and forums absolutely do work, really niche, customized forums. And clearly you wouldn't do a visual campaign there. What you would do is you would have somebody go in as kind of a digital street team and very naturally just try to gear the conversation towards your business. And I mean very naturally. So you don't want to go into a forum and say, oh, hey, I use so-and-so, go check out their site. You want to spend time in there for a couple of weeks being like, oh yeah, I totally have an electric vehicle too. Mine is red. And just build those relationships. And then eventually when those questions are asked, you're like, oh yeah, you should go buy it from this guy. Here's his name. I love him. So you see what I mean? Like, that interaction doesn't always have to be visual either. So you can have that kind of digital street team that's going through those forums and doing those reach out campaigns.
All right, looks like that's time for us. Thanks a lot, Kaz. That was a lot of really, really great information. Thanks to everybody who joined us today. We will be sharing a recording of this so you can watch it again, share it with other people. So check your inboxes for a link to that. Thank you again.